once you accept that your own food is not very good, then sky's the limit. Yeah, I mean, a lot of British people voted for Boris Johnson because he may be a rascal, but he's a lovable rascal. Abolishing slavery was an act against the free market. Yeah. Hi, my name is Ha-Joon Chang. I'm here at Penguin to answer some big questions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great, yeah.
There's an interesting parallel between food and economics because when I first came to this country as a graduate student in the mid-1980s, well, things were starting to change, but most British people just didn't want to eat anything unfamiliar. In contrast, today, Britain is one of the greatest places to eat in the world, yeah? Mainly because basically sometime in the mid to late 1990s, British people decided that actually our food sucks. And then once you accept that your own food is not very good, then sky's the limit. Yeah, it has, as a result, become a country with one of the most interesting culinary cultures in the world. Unfortunately, the reverse has happened in the last few decades in economics. There were many different schools of economics, yeah, different approaches to economics, fighting with each other, learning from each other, yeah, trying to fuse the different theoretical traditions, which is very much like the British food scene today. Unfortunately, since the 80s, economics has been dominated by one school of economics called Neoclassical School of Economics, which has a very particular approach to understanding the world. The most important assumptions are that people are selfish, and this has made economics in Britain and actually in most of the world very similar to the food scene of Britain before the 1990s. Yeah, Neoclassical economics has some great strengths, yeah, but like all the other schools, it also has great weaknesses. Yeah. Almost all political decisions involve economic dimensions. Democracy becomes meaningless unless every citizen understands some economics. Yeah? Because otherwise, the elections become like, voting for TV talent shows like X Factor. Yeah? A lot of Americans voted for George W. Bush because they thought he was a guy who you could have a beer with. Yeah? I mean, a lot of British people voted for Boris Johnson because he may be a rascal, but he's a lovable rascal. Yeah? But what reason to vote for your political leaders? Yeah? I mean, you need to understand what these people are proposing to do or what these people are hiding from you in terms of their economic, social, and other policies. And in order to understand it, you need to understand economics, because I'm not suggesting that everyone has to pick up an economics textbook and try to educate themselves, but they have to keep their interest in economic issues and try to understand the basic principles behind them, because otherwise, what's the point of having democracy? Yeah? What we need to remember is that not everyone is going through the same experience. So some people actually become richer because of disinflation. Some people suffer terribly. Therefore, in devising schemes to deal with the cost of living crisis, we need to have any kind of pretense that this is going to be kind of something that benefits everyone equally. You know, some people have to give up some things, others will get more. So in the short run, we have to control the prices of some of the essential things. You know, of course, this is quite controversial, this idea of price control. But if it's designed well and targeted well, it works. Yeah? You've seen that during the Second World War. You know, there's extensive rationing and price control. Now, however, this is only a short-term measure, because in the long run, you need to increase the supply of things that are in shortage in order to deal with this in a fundamental way. You should increase welfare payments for the poorest people. Of course, this is going to hit the company profit, but those companies will have to give up something. Also, this will require more government revenue. If it's the wages for public sector workers, increased welfare payment, you will need more money on the part of the government. This idea is already quite widely accepted. Impose windfall tax on the energy companies and other companies which are making exceptional profit out of this process, and raising taxes for the richer people, including myself. I mean that we have to make these arrangements to make the whole thing bearable. There is enough resource to deal with this, and policies that can deliver them if there's a political will. The freedom we are talking about there is very specific. It's a freedom of market transaction. So if you want to buy something, sell something, you don't have to ask someone whether you can do it. You don't have to get permission to do this or do that. But that is a very narrow sense of freedom. In the 19th century, slavery was legal in many countries. So buying and selling people was considered part of the free market order. But that free market order meant total unfreedom for the enslaved people. This idea that freedom is good and therefore free market must be good actually made this insanity possible. Because once you define some people as chattel, as property, then trying to prevent that transaction, abolishing slavery, was an act against the free market. Also, you have different types of freedom. So you have economic freedom, political freedom, social freedom, and this idea that somehow because we have the free market, we have a free political system, free society. This is wrong. But somehow the free market supporters have persuaded people that all the freedoms go together. And therefore, if you have a free market, you will have other freedoms. This is not true. The short answer is no, because I'm an atheist. But the long answer is actually a lot more complicated, because when people say I'm an atheist, I ask them, what kind of atheist are you? Are you a Catholic atheist or Jewish atheist, Muslim atheist, Protestant atheist? Because they are reacting to the idea of a particular God. But actually, I'm one of, probably on a world scale, the minority of people who grew up in a culture, even the idea of God doesn't exist. I'm from South Korea. Korea has a lot of Christians. A lot of people are Buddhists, although the Buddhists that also don't have monotheistic God. But I'm from another group which has basically no idea of God. I mean, you have this idea that there are some supernatural beings, that you worship your ancestors, but there's no God. Even the concept of God is alien to me. So that's the longer version of the answer. Thanks for watching. You can get my book Edible Economics by clicking the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to Penguin for more videos like this.